Hello, good afternoon. How are you all doing today? Hope you're all doing fine. Welcome back to biology class. Welcome back to biology class. If you can hear me, please thumbs up. Thank you, Emmanuel. So, the last class we had in biology, we talked about adaptation, looking at the mouth parts adaptation in insects. We looked at the mouth parts adaptation in insects, a case study of mosquito, butterfly, and moth. Also, we looked into protection and defense, how organisms protect and defend themselves, a case study of stick insects, praying mantis, and toad. Then we move to securing mates in agama lizards and birds, whereby we looked at the way they defend, the way they secure mates using their color change, their head bobbing and push-ups, territorial behavior, female selection. Okay, and then we move to feather displays in birds. So we are done with adaptation. We also looked at some past questions under the topic. All right, so today we are moving to internal structure of a flowering plant. Internal structure of a flowering plant. Okay, before we move to the before we delve into the topic, I want us to look at a scenario of um human being. Okay, so I want us to look at ourselves. Look at yourself. You can see your body, people can see you, but then we cannot see what is really holding you, what is giving you the strength, the support, what is allowing you to be able to move from one place to another. We can only see your physical features. We can only see your organs, your legs, your physical features, okay, but we cannot see what is inside of you. So likewise, the plants, they have internal structure. Like the human being, you have circulatory system, reproductive system, you have digestive system, you have the brain. All these things, we can't see them outside. We can only see what is outside of you. So likewise, the plants, we um the plants have different internal structure, that helps them to be able to carry out their daily activities. And we are going to be looking at a flowering plant. Okay, I am going to present a flowering plant now for you to see. Okay, I believe we can see what is on the bird. Okay, so this is an example of a flowering plant. We are all familiar with plants. We see plants everywhere we go. We see plants around our houses. We see plants at your school. You see plants at your mosque, at your church. You see plants everywhere. So this is an example of a plant. All right. So what is a flowering plant? As you can see on the bird, you can see what is labeled. You are familiar with what is on the bird, right? So now, as you can see, what is a flowering plant? What are the features in flowering plants? How do we classify it? How do we look into it? Okay, so the internal structure of a flowering plant consists of the various tissues and systems that perform essential work, essential functions. Just like I explained about human being, you have different organs in your body, different systems with different functions. So likewise, we have the same thing in plants. So you have the plants also have different functions. They have these different tissues, different systems in their own body. So all these things are what we want to look into. Okay, so the plant has different structures, different tissues that give them support, all right, to be able to carry out their day-to-day activities. So the main structures, all right, the main parts of a flowering plant is the leaf. As you can see on the bird, we have the leaf, we have the leaf, okay, this is the leaf. As you can see here, you have the leaf, you have the stem. You can see your stem here. You can see your stem at the middle. It's the one at the middle holding the plant. So this is the stem, and then you have the roots. All these parts are your roots. Okay, so these are the roots. Every part here, don't forget, all these things are deep down inside the ground. They are underground. So these are the roots parts. You have the stem, you have the leaf. So these three parts are the major parts in plants. These three are the major parts in plants. So we are going to be looking at the internal structure of each of these parts. The internal structure of leaf, the internal structure of stem, the internal structure of roots. Okay, so if you are with me, please send I am with you. If you are with me, if you are getting it, send I am with you. Thank you. Okay, so we are going to be looking at each of these parts. All right. So I want to wipe off the bird now. So we go into each of the internal structures. Thank you for your responses. Okay, so we go back to our notes. Okay, so we want to look into each of these parts. I've shown you the leaf, I've shown you the stem, I've shown you the roots. Okay, so we are going to be starting with roots. That is internal structure of the roots, or let me say the internal structure of a flowering plant is divided into three parts. Okay, the internal structure of a flowering plant. The internal structure of a flowering plant you hear me? If you can hear me, please thumbs up. If you are with me, please thumbs up. All right, thank you. So, okay, so the internal structure of a flowering plant is divided into three. The internal structure of a flowering plant is divided into three main parts, okay, which are the leaf. We have the leaf, we have the root, and we have the stem. Okay, just like I explained earlier. So we want to look at the internal structure of a root now. We are going to be looking at it one after the other. So internal structure of a root. So what is the function of a root in a plant? What does the root do for a plant? How does it function? What is the major function of a root? Okay, the root absorbs, as you know that the root is the one under the ground, it's underground, right? So we all know that the root is underground, and what does it do to the whole plant? It absorbs water from the ground. It absorbs water and then transport it to the whole part of the plant. So that is the major function of the root. It absorbs water and nutrients and then anchors the plant. So that is the major function of the root. So we want to look at the internal structure of a root. How does it look like? What are the things it is composed of? What are the things um what are the things it is composed of? Okay, so I am going to be presenting it to you now for you to see the internal structure of a root. The internal structure of a root. I believe we can all see. We can see what is on the board. So this is the internal structure of a root. Look at the parts. This is how it looks like. This is how it looks like. So we are going to be looking at all these parts one after the other. We are going to be looking at it one after the other. Okay, so number one, the layer of the root. The layers of the root. The layers of the root. You can see the way it is labeled. All right, so number one is the epidermis. If you look at it, you see that this diagram is in layers. You can see the way it is round, round, round. You can see they are in layers. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So they are in layers. So the outer layer is called the epidermis. Epidermis, as you can see on the board, epidermis. That is the name of the outer layer. And what does it do? What does the epidermis do to the root? It is the outer layer with root hairs. You can see the root hairs. These are the root hairs. So it is the outer layer with the root hairs, and it helps to absorb water. So it helps in absorption of water, just like I explained earlier about the roots. So the epidermis is the outer layer, so it helps in absorption of water and nutrients, okay, from the ground. All right, that is the outer layer. So we move to the next layer. You see the way it is labeled. You can see the next layer is this, which is the cortex. The cortex, that is the second layer. So what is the function of the cortex? The cortex is made of what we call parenchymal cells, and it helps in storing food. It helps in food storage. Food storage. Please take note of everything. It helps in food storage. Okay, that is the function of the cortex. It helps in food storage. Okay, so then we move to the next layer, which is the endodermis. Look at the endodermis there. All right, you can see the endodermis. Endo means inside. Endo means inside. So the endodermis is this layer. As you can see, this black point, that is the endodermis. And what is the function of the endodermis? It helps to control what is inside here. It helps to control the movement of water into the vascular bundles. So you can see what is inside of here. So this circle here, this outer layer, this endodermis is responsible for the movement of whatever is inside this circle. So it helps in the movement of water to the vascular bundles. We'll go to the vascular bundles now. So the function of the endodermis is it helps to move, or it helps in movement of water. It helps in movement of water. Okay, it helps in movement of water. All right, so that is the function of the endodermis. So we have another layer known as pericycle. Look at the pericycle here. This black point, you can see the black point here. This is the pericycle. That is what we call pericycle. And what is the function of the pericycle? It gives rise to the lateral roots. That is all these small roots. Sometimes the root does not grow straight. It has different branches even under the ground. So those branches, those parts of the root, there's a part of the root that we call the lateral root. So the root does not grow alone, it does not grow straight, it has many parts. So this pericycle gives rise to what we call lateral roots. Lateral roots. Okay, lateral roots. That is what pericycle does. It helps to give rise to produce the lateral roots. So the lateral root grows outwards, like just like I explained, it grows like branch. So that is the function of lateral roots. Then we move to the next layer. What is the next layer? That is phloem and xylem. Look at this point very well, where we have you can see the black at the middle of the circle. That is the xylem. That is the xylem. And then you can see the black inside the blue color. That is the phloem. So the phloem and the xylem are called the vascular bundles. Yes, the phloem and the xylem. Also, there's something we call cambium, but then we don't really label the cambium because it gives rise to the secondary xylem and phloem. So we most times we don't see the need to label the cambium. All right. So majorly the phloem, the xylem, and the cambium are called the vascular bundles. The question can come in any way. Okay, so the phloem, the xylem, and cambium. Cambium. This is the spelling of cambium. 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 So the phloem, the xylem, and the cambium are called vascular bundles. They are called vascular bundles. So what is the function of each of these vascular bundles? What is the function of the phloem, the function of the xylem, and the function of cambium? Just like I explained earlier, that cambium gives rise to a new xylem and phloem for secondary growth. So that is why most times we don't label cambium when we draw the internal root structure, because it is responsible to produce a new xylem and phloem for a secondary growth. That is the function of cambium. Okay, so xylem carries water and mineral salt. It carries water and mineral salt and transports it to other parts of the plant, while the phloem carries food. It carries food to the other part of the plant. So that is the function of the phloem. So don't forget, the phloem, xylem, and cambium are called vascular bundles. So in case the cambium is not there, just like I explained earlier, then the phloem and xylem are called vascular bundles. Okay, I believe you understand the internal root structure. If you are with me, please thumbs up. If you're with me and you're enjoying the class, thumbs up. I'm waiting. All right, thank you. Okay, so we are through with the internal root structure. So we want to look at another part. Don't forget when we started the class, I said there are three main parts of plants, of a flowering plant, which is the roots, the stem, and the leaf. So we are done with the internal structure of internal root structure. So we're moving to the internal stem structure. I hope we all have the graphs of what is on the bird, because I'm going to wipe it off now so we can move to the next part. All right. So we move to the internal structure of stem. Internal structure of stem, as we are shown with the roots. We're moving to the internal structure of stem. All right. So this is the internal structure of stem. I believe we can see what is on the bird. Okay. So this is the internal structure of stem. All right. So we can see the labels, you can see the phloem, the cambium, the xylem, the pith, the cortex, and the epidermis. Epidermis, please, not epidermis. It's epidermis. Epidermis. Okay. So we have the epidermis. All right. So we are going to be starting from the first layer. As you can see, the internal structure of stem. So we are going to be starting from the first layer. What is the function of stem? I explained earlier that the roots helps to absorb water and nutrients from the ground to the part of the body. So what is the function of the stem? The stem provides support and transport substances. It provides support. Like I showed you earlier, the stem is at the middle, right? Don't forget, I showed you the flowering plants, right? I showed you the flowering plants, which is this. And you can see that the stem is at the middle. Can we all see the stem? This is the stem, is at the middle, right? So you can see that it helps to, it gives support, it helps to hold the whole plant. Okay, so that is the function of the stem. It gives support and transport substances into the whole plant. So we want to look at the internal structure now. Internal structure of this thing at the middle. Internal structure of this thing at the middle. How does it look like? This is what we see from outside. But how does the inside looks? That is what we want to check now. Okay, so this is the internal structure of stem. All right, that is how it looks like. That is how the inside looks. So the first layer, as you can see downward, the first layer is the epidermis. The first layer is the epidermis. As you can see, this is the epidermis. This is the first layer. And don't, this is Epidermis. That is epidermis. Epidermis. So what is the function of the epidermis? Just like I explained earlier. Also, epidermis in stem, it's the outer protective layer. All right, it's the outer protective layer. However, it can have it may have cortical. There's something we call cortical. Cuticle. So for stem, the epidermis may have cortical. And what is the function of the cortical? Don't forget, every stem of plants is always strong because it helps to support. All right, so when it has cortical, the function of cortical is that it prevents the plant from losing too much water. So it prevents water loss. That is the function of cortical. So the epidermis helps to give support. It's a protective layer and may even have cortical to prevent water loss. That is the function of the epidermis. Then the next layer is the cortex. And what's the function of the cortex? The cortex is made of parenchyma cells. There is something we call parenchyma. Parenchyma. There's something we call cholenchyma. Cholenchyma. I believe we can see what is on the board. There's something we call sclerenchyma. Sclerenchyma. Don't forget, we are still talking about the cortex. All right. We are still talking about the cortex. So what do we mean by parenchyma, cholenchyma, sclerenchyma? Parenchyma from the word para. Para means beside. You can see that the cortex is beside, right? So para means beside. And the function of parenchyma is that it gives plant tissues. It helps with various functions like storage and photosynthesis. That is the function of parenchyma. It helps in giving it helps in storing food, it helps in storage and photosynthesis. That is the function of parenchyma. And then the cholenchyma, it contains, it looks like glue. And looking at glue generally, when you add a glue to something, what does it do? It becomes hard. Becomes rigid. So that is the function of the cholenchyma. It contains something, it looks like glue. So the glue looks, it gives support and rigidity to the plant. That is the function of cholenchyma. All right. So it provides support, acting like a glue to hold plant parts together. That is the function of cholenchyma. And talking about the sclerenchyma, sclero means heart. Okay, just break it down. Sclero means heart. So what does it do? It gives total rigidity and strength to the plant. All right. So the cholenchyma, sclerenchyma, and cholenchyma is found in the cortex. All right. So that is the major function of the cortex. So looking at the function of cholenchyma, parenchyma, and sclerenchyma, it means the cortex helps to give support. It gives support. It helps in storage, food storage, and it gives strength to the plant. Okay, so we move to the next layer, which is the vascular bundle. Don't forget, I told you earlier, who can tell me the vascular bundles here using the chat box? According to what I explained earlier, who can mention the vascular bundles here using the chat box? I'm waiting for your responses. What are the vascular bundle? Which of these parts are the vascular bundles? Thank you. Thank you. Please look at the diagram very well. Look at the diagram very well. Look at the diagram very well. Okay, okay. Thank you. Thank you very much for your responses. I appreciate that. Now, why I say you should look at the diagram very well, I said something the other time when I was explaining the internal root structure. I said something about the vascular bundle, that we have the phloem, we have the xylem, and we have the cambium. I mentioned cambium. I said these three are known as the vascular bundles. But in a situation whereby cambium is not included, then you can go for phloem and xylem. All right. So thank you for your responses. So anywhere you see, once you see cambium, if cambium is there, cambium is also one of the vascular bundles. So we have three vascular bundles: phloem, xylem, and cambium. But just in case cambium is not included, probably in the option or in the question, then you can go for phloem and xylem. I hope you understand that. Thank you. So looking at this diagram now, we can see that we have our xylem, we have the cambium, we have the phloem, which means that these three, they are the vascular sponges. They are the vascular sponges. Okay, so the phloem, cambium, and xylem are the vascular sponges. And what do they do? I said the xylem helps in transporting water and minerals to the plant, and the cambium helps to produce new xylem and phloem, right? And then the phloem helps to produce food, to transport food, rather, to transport food, transport sugar to the other part of the plant. Thank you. So the next layer is the pith. You can see inside here, you can see the black points. This is the pith. So what is the function of the pith? You can see the point is at the center of the diagram, is at the middle of the structure. So it's the central region storing food and providing support. That is the function of the pith. It helps to store food and provide support. It helps to store food and provide support. That is the function of the pith. It stores food and provide support. All right. So this is the internal structure of stem. So I hope we all understand. Then we move to what we call the internal structure of a leaf. If you have a question, please type your question using the chat box so we can go through it after the class. If you have any question, you can ask using the chat box. All right. So we move to the internal structure of the leaf. We have talked about the roots, we have talked about the stem, then we are moving on to the root. Okay, so I want to wipe off the birds now. I hope you all have um a grasp of what is there in before we move to the internal structure of leaf. All right. So we move to the internal structure of leaf. Can we see what is on the bird? This is the internal structure of leaf. Internal structure of leaf. Can we see what is on the bird? We all know the leaf of plants, all right? But let me assume that we don't know leaf. So let me go back to the flowering plants I showed you earlier. All right, this is our flowering plant. We have talked about the root. We've talked about the root. We have talked about the stem, which is this middle. And now we want to talk about this. This is what we call leaf. We want to talk about the leaf. Okay, so I'm going to show you the internal structure of leaf. Now, this thing that you are seeing, this green thing that you see here, we want to see what is inside. We want to see how the internal structure looks like. We want to see what is inside the leaf, what is composed of. So that's what we call the internal structure. Okay, so we want to look at the internal structure of leaf. All right. So what is leaf? What does the leaf do? What is the function of leaf? What is the function of leaf? All right. So the leaf is the primary site of photosynthesis. The primary site of photosynthesis. Primary site of photosynthesis. Okay. So what is photosynthesis? Photosynthesis is a process whereby green plants synthesize or manufacture organic compound, primarily sugar, from carbon dioxide using sunlight as a source of energy and chlorophyll. So the leaf is the site of photosynthesis. It is the one that is more exposed to the sunlight, to rain, to every seasons. So the leaf is the site of photosynthesis. Okay, so we want to look at the structure, the internal structure of the leaf. What is composed of? What is inside the leaf? What are the things? What are the components that helps the leaf to function well? That is what we are looking into. You can see on the bird leaf anatomy. All right, so that is what we want to look into. So we have different layers, just like we have it in the roots, in the stem. So we have layers in leaf as well. So the first layer is the epidermis, which is the outer part. You can see the epidermis. Look at the structure of the leaf. The way you see the structure is the way the labels are. Okay, so the epidermis, you can see, is the outer layer. It is the upper part, the upper layer, the outer protective layer, which contains what we call stomata for gas exchange. So the same definition we have been giving our epidermis is the same function that it does here. It helps in protecting the leaf. It is the upper layer, upper layer. So it helps in protecting the whole parts of the leaf. All right, so we move to the next layer, which is the mesophyll layer. You can see we have two mesophyll cells here. These two, these two parts are called, they are majorly known as mesophyll layer. So just like they are divided into two. Okay, so you have the palisade mesophyll cells and you have the spongy mesophyll cells. All right, so you have the mesophyll, the palisade mesophyll cells, then you have the spongy um mesophyll cells. All right, so these cells, they have their own function. These cells have their own function. Okay, they have their own function. And what are the functions? What are their functions? As we have the palisade mesophyll cells, we have the spongy mesophyll cells. They have different function. Okay, so for the palisade mesophyll cell, it contains many chloroplasts for photosynthesis. It contains many chloroplasts for photosynthesis. Chloroplast gives rise to the chlorophyll. All right, gives rise to the chlorophyll. So we see the chlorophyll from the chloroplast. So palisade cells contains what we call chloroplasts, and it is the chloroplast that helps in the major photosynthesis. You can see this is the palisade cell here. You can see how green it is. So it has many chloroplasts for photosynthesis. Then we have the spongy mesophyll cells. All right, so the spongy mesophyll cells is loosely packed. Look at the spongy mesophyll cells. Can you see this circle? You can see the black. They are loosed. They are scattered. All right, so they are not together. They are loosely packed with airspace for gas exchange. You can see how black they are. Look at them here. Black. They are not together. They are loosed. Okay, they are loosed. So they are loosely packed in one place, and it helps in gas exchange. It helps in gas exchange. So we move on to the next layer, which is the vascular bundles. The vascular bundles. So looking at this diagram now, what are the vascular bundles here? Looking at this diagram, make use of the chat box. I would appreciate your responses. Looking at this diagram, looking at the labels, what are the vascular bundles here? What are the vascular bundles here? I'm waiting. I'm waiting. I'm waiting. Thank you. Thank you very much. I love that. Thank you. So the vascular bundles here are the xylem and the phloem. Thank you very much for your response. The vascular bundles here, they are the xylem and the phloem. As you can see, this does not have cambium, just like I explained earlier. So since there is no cambium here, the vascular bundles you can see here are the xylem and the phloem. All right, these are the vascular bundles. Okay, and I explained earlier that the xylem helps in transport water and minerals to the leaf, while the phloem helps to transport sugar to the other part of the plant. Okay, so these are the major okay, we have the cortical. All right, we have the cortical. Don't forget, I explained cortical the other time, the function of cortical, that it protects the plant against water loss, So it helps the plant not to lose too much water. So it protects the plant against water loss. That is the function of the cortical. That is the function of the cortical. Then we have the lower epidermis. The lower epidermis also function as the real epidermis, just that this the first one is at the upper part, while the second one is at the lower part. Hence, we use the word lower epidermis. It functions in the same way. All right. And the stomach also function in gas exchange also functions in gas exchange. So these are the major parts of of internal structure of leaf, as you can see on the bird. So we have talked about the internal structure of the root, we have talked about the internal structure of the stem, and we have talked about the leaf anatomy, that is internal structure of the leaf. So I hope we all understand what the internal structure of a flowering plant looks like. All right, so we are going to be discussing the importance of each of these components one after the other. We have actually discussed that, so we are going to use a tabular form just to recap everything we have discussed. So I'm going to wipe off the birds now. I hope uh we understand what is there in, and I can wipe it off. All right. All right. So we move to the next. We move to the next. All right. So we want to look at what we call the functions, the major functions. That's what we want to look at now. The major functions of the part of the plants, the components of the components. Okay, so using a tabular form, So we have talked about the xylem. We have talked about the xylem, and we want to see their function just to recap everything that we have talked about. Okay, so we have the xylem. What is the function of the xylem? We said it conducts water, right? It conducts water and minerals. Conducts water and minerals. Okay, we also have the phloem. What does the phloem do? It conducts sugar and nutrients. Sugar and nutrients. I hope we are following. All right. We talked about the epidermis. We talked about the epidermis. What does this do? What is the function of the epidermis? What does it do? It protects against water loss. Don't forget we said the epidermis it may have something we call cortical. All right. And once it has cortical, of course, it means it protects the whole part of the plant from water loss. All right. Water loss and pathogens. Okay. So we also have the mesophyll. We also have the mesophyll. We have the mesophyll. Don't forget the mesophyll is into two parts, right? We have the palisade mesophyll, and which other one do we have? Don't forget that I said is divided into two. All right. I said we have the palisade mesophyll, then we have the spongy mesophyll that is in leaf. Okay. So what does it do generally? It carries out photosynthesis. It carries out photosynthesis. Carries out photosynthesis. So we also talked about the cambium. We also talked about the cambium that it produces new xylem and phloem. Don't forget, it produces new xylem and phloem. Cambium produces new xylem and phloem. So I believe we all understand what we have done today. Produces new xylem and phloem. New xylem and phloem. Okay, so and the pith. We also talked about the pith that it stores food and supports the stem. The pith stores food. The pith stores food and supports the stem. All right. So this is the function of each of the components we have talked about, and I believe that we all understand what is therein. We all understand the internal structure, of a flowering plant. Okay. So we are going to be looking at different questions under this topic, so you can have an idea of how questions come under this topic. Okay, so we are going to be looking at different questions. We're going to be looking at different questions under the topic. Okay, so number one question is under 2022. Don't forget, if you have any question, you can ask using the chat box. Okay, so the first question, I'm going to be sending it now. Going to be sending it now, right? So I believe I can wipe off the board now. We have an idea of what is there in. So I'll paste the question for us to see. Paste the question for us to see. Okay. So this is 2022 question. This is year 2022. And it says, the internal structure of a leaf The internal structure of a leaf that has larger air space is dash. The internal structure of a leaf that has larger air space is dash. A. Palisade mesophyll. B. Epidermis. C. Spongyl mesophyll. D. Vascular sponges. So what is the internal structure of the leaf that has larger airspace? So I'm waiting. I want to see the answer. If you know the answer, please make use of the chat box. Okay, okay. I need more responses. I need more responses. I need more responses. Thank you very much for your responses. I love this. The answer is what, according to the way I explained. Okay, I said A. I said the function of palisade mesophyll is that it contains many chloroplasts for photosynthesis. Now, B is the outer layer. It protects the whole part of the plant. And C, they are loosely packed with air spaces for gas exchange. And the vascular bundles, they are the xylem, phloem, and the cambium. So the function, looking at the function, the answer is what? Spongyl mesophyll. Thank you very much for your responses. I love that. So let's go into another question. Let's move to another question. This is 2020. This next question is year 2020. Year 2020. And it says, which of the following structures is capable of producing more tissues in the stem of a herbaceous flowering plant? Don't be deceived by the herbaceous. Remove the herbaceous and be left with flowering plants. Don't be confused. Okay. So which of the following structures is capable of producing more tissues in the stem of a herbaceous flowering plant? Okay, so according to the internal structure of the stem that we looked into, which of these parts is capable of producing more tissues according to the explanation? A. Epidermis. B. Pericycle. C. Xylem. And D. Cambium. Which of them is capable of producing more tissues? We said the epidermis is the outer layer. All right, is the outer layer, helps to protect the whole part of the plant. And B, the pericycle. General function of the pericycle, I made mention of, I think we talked about that under the layers of the roots. And I said it gives rise to lateral roots. Okay, so then the xylem transports water and minerals to the other part of the plant. And the cambium, it does what? It produces xylem and phloem. Thank you very much. I love your response. I'm happy. Thank you. Yes. So the stem does not have pericycle, according to what we did today, right? It is the root that has pericycle, which gives rise to lateral roots. So the stem does not have pericycle. So looking at the other parts now the pericycle is gone. It's not part of the stem. So the epidermis is the outer part, outer layer. Now the xylem, it transports water and minerals. That's the function. Now the cambium, I said cambium produces new xylem and phloem. Don't forget that xylem and phloem, they are tissues. So the structure that is capable of producing more tissues in the stem of a herbaceous flowering plant is what? is what? The cambium. Thank you. Is the cambium. So that helps to produce new tissues. So I love your responses. We move into another question. I hope we are getting it. I hope you understand. Okay, so the next question is 2018. 2018 past question. 2018. So I'm going to wipe off the board now. Okay. So 2018 past question. It says the function of pith in plant is dash. The function of pith. What is the function of pith? And which of the parts has pith? What is the function of pith? Don't forget we have pith in stem. Okay, so what is the function? A. Absorb mineral salts and nutrients from the soil. That is a no-no. Store and transport nutrients throughout the plant. Trap chlorophyll from the sunlight. Removal of waste products from the plant. What is the major function? What is the major function? Who can I love this. In fact, I love this. Thank you. I love your response. I love your response. It shows you are following me. It shows you are following me. So thank you very much for your response. Is there any other answer? Is there any other person that wants to try? Is there any other person that wants to try? Okay, because of our time. So thank you very much, Emmanuel. The answer is B. It stores and transports nutrients throughout the plant. Don't forget, the pit is at the middle of the stem. Yes, the pit is at the middle. And I said it helps to store food. So, and of course, food is also nutrients. Okay, so it helps to store and transport nutrients throughout the plant. So I love your response. Okay, so the next question is also 2018. It's also 2018. I hope we are gaining something. I hope we are gaining something. Okay. So this is the next question, also 2018. It says in plant tissue, in fact, this is too simple. I want responses using the chat box. I don't want to, in fact, I don't want to read the question by myself. Look at the question and give me the answer using the chat box. Read the question and give me the answer using the chat box. I'm waiting. I'm waiting for the answer. I'm waiting for the answer. Who else want to try? Okay, I'm waiting. All right. So a plant tissue that carries water and mineral salt is what? Of course, it is xylem. Xylem carries water and mineral salts throughout to the other part of the plant. So that's the function of xylem. So the answer is xylem. So I believe we have really learned today, and I hope we are gaining something and excited that we can now tackle UTME questions on our own. So please, you can also go to tackle more questions on this topic using our app. You have access to numerous past questions on the app. So go to the app and check more questions 2017, 2016, 2015, 2014. Check questions as many as possible and treat them under the topics that we have done here. So thank you very much for your time. And please, I want to say, don't miss any of these classes. Don't miss any of these classes. Try as much as possible to always attend all the classes so you don't miss out on any. So tomorrow you'll be having other two subjects, but not biology. So thank you very much for your time. I think till Monday we'll meet again for biology. But tomorrow there are two other subjects that you'll be having. So thank you very much for your time, and see you on Monday. Bye.